Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a review here for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, one of my favorite Power Rangers shows growing up. Now, I talked about in previous reviews for the show, as I've been working my way kind of off and on through it. I saw most of what I know of Mighty Morphin on like 4 or 5 VHS tapes I had. I got to see In Space on TV. That was the first like week-to-week Power Rangers I got to see, but I didn't get to see the whole thing. I saw very little of that in hindsight. Lost Galaxy, though, I'm pretty sure I was there from the beginning. It came out in 1999 and it ran till 2000. It's about 43, 45 episodes, something like that. But I'm pretty sure that I watched the majority, if not all of, and then happened to forget most of, this season. But it's so good. In some respects, this is going to be a controversial review, personally, because in some respects, I think I like it more than In Space. In other respects, In Space is a better written show, it has better character drama, definitely better acting. But Lost Galaxy is not a lost cause, if you will. I really like this show, a lot. Everything from the costumes, I love like the black stripes and stuff. It's animal themed again, so we're kind of going back to the old Mighty Morphin style for America this time around, but kind of not, because it's still, they're kind of like gigantic creatures that end up becoming the Zords. Like the Blue Ranger, for example, has a big ape, so his helmet is themed after an ape and stuff, just like how Mighty Morphin used to do. But this show can be messy. But you have to understand, from this point onward, not just In Space, not just Mighty Morphin, but from this show onward, I was obsessed with Power Rangers for about 4 or 5 years. I think until they did that first Ninja season. I think it's called like Ninja Steel or something. The first one they did, where they actually look like ninjas. Like 3 or 4 shows from now. I think it's after Wild Force. Anyway, this is what Power Rangers was to me. It was sci-fi. It wasn't just action and heavy metal music. It was this. It was all of the sci-fi, and apparently something I didn't even realize. This is a very Star Trek show from this point on. You know, In Space kind of was too, but this is really leaning into that. The sci-fi elements, the space exploration stuff. If you haven't seen Power Rangers before, In Space kicks that off. I recommend going there if you don't want to sit through Mighty Morphin and all the rough spots of it. In Space in totality was really good. Lost Galaxy in totality is really good as well. And I can't believe people talk down about this season sometimes. Not as much as you would think, not as much as I may sound like, but enough to bother me, right? So, I guess the place to start, man, this season, again, is very Star Trek-y with space exploration. I always thought that from this point onward, Power Rangers was like in the future, right? It's not. It literally takes place like right after In Space. You don't have any of those same Rangers showing up here, except for like a couple of spots later on. They were really, really great, by the way. I don't want to spoil anything. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but still, that was nice when it happens. But this is when we really kick off the idea, and kind of In Space was too, about having a brand new cast every season, for the most part. Very few people carrying over. I think some of these people went over to the next season. Lightspeed Rescue, is that what it is? One of my favorites from when I was growing up. This season essentially kicks off with a spaceship that's going to go into space to find a new Earth, some kind of new planet that we can live on, has oxygen on the air and whatnot. They're colonizing, and they take a whole colony of human beings, give them these goofy get-ups, these outfits and stuff that they have to wear, and they put them on this big spaceship. It's like a snow globe, and they send them into space, right? And they have like a commander who runs this whole thing like a military operation. I mean, I guess it would basically be like a military base, essentially. Even the civvies living there would be military people, right? That serve some kind of purpose there. Economics, jobs, whatever. But essentially, they're going out into space to go find this new planet. And there's kind of like a military group who at one point are caught up in a battlefield. And a lot of the people that we meet on that battlefield are the Rangers, like the Blue Ranger, like The Pink Ranger, Kendricks. The Blue Ranger's name is Kai, by the way. He's an Asian fellow. One of my favorites as a kid, matter of fact. And I don't really know why in hindsight, but he was. And then who was supposed to be the original Red Ranger named Mike. Well, Mike has a younger brother named Leo. I think he's like a year younger than him. Leo happens to not be a part of this military, and he sneaks on to the spaceship before it leaves Earth. He's kind of like a rebel dude, but he also has like a goofy, kind heart. Like, he likes magic tricks and stuff. He does magic tricks in his free time for his friends and whatnot when he has friends. But he's kind of like a scoundrel. Kind of like how Aladdin was when Aladdin, the movie, starts up. But he sneaks onto the spaceship before it leaves Earth to go colonize. And eventually he gets discovered because, the security catch him and go after him. Well, the spaceship is called Terra Venture, by the way. And he puts on a costume that, to disguise himself. And it's actually one of the military uniforms. And he gets put out on the battlefield after a transport with a spaceship, another smaller spaceship, to go serve with his brother on the battlefield. His brother Mike gets pissed off that he showed up. And eventually, I think if I remember correctly, I watched this whole show in 9 days, so if I get details wrong or forget some detail, forgive me for that. Because, I've literally watched it nonstop, day and night, before work and after work. This has been my life this week, essentially, while my wife has been busy and out of town. So anyway, there's if I remember correctly, some kind of portal opens up, because of some bad guys attacking a jungle planet that the Yellow Ranger, Maya, comes from, who, by the way, is smoking hot. She's like a tribal girl. She lives in part of a tribe on this particular planet, and they're about to be attacked, and are being attacked currently, by a typical monster Power Rangers creature, who has a sword, right? And a bunch of villain people that are bugs. And he serves under a chick named Trakina, and mainly her dad, Scorpius, who is a tentacle spider monster, who's a practical effect, by the way. It's a puppet, an animatronic, and it is terrifying. Scorpius is one of the coolest Power Rangers villains ever. I love him as much as I love Zed. The way the eyes and the head thumps it's breathing and stuff, the way the tentacles move, it looks great as an animatronic. But it kind of is the leader of all of this evil now. And Trakina, his daughter, is so sexy, dude. I know it's weird. It always sounds like Gooner content when I talk about these Power Ranger shows. But dude, some of the women are fine on this show. The Yellow Ranger and Trakina both are amazing in this season. But Trakina is pretty evil, but she's kind of harmless. She's kind of an idiot. By the end of the season, she is not an idiot. They really do a lot with Trakina by the end of the season. But anyway, back to the Yellow Ranger's jungle planet. A portal or something opens up, and she encounters the soon-to-be Rangers on their own little battlefield fight they're having with these bug creature things that are basically this season's putties. And they decide to go in to help her. Basically, Leo sneaks in first, the real Red Ranger of this season, kind of the main character of this season. He jumps into that portal in front of everybody to go help, and his brother Mike, the older brother, comes after him. And then the other ones follow suit, Kai and Kendricks, the Pink and Blue Rangers. So anyway, they get in there, and it kind of has this King Arthur's Sword in the Stone type of thing going on, where there's these things called Quasar Sabers, which I completely forgot about until I watched this season. And I love the Quasar Sabers, right? They're stuck in stone. It has this whole chosen one situation where these things have been in stone for a long time. The only time they'll ever be able to be removed from these stones are when some destined heroes will show up and pull them out of the stone and fight the good fight and defeat evil with them. That's the general prophecy, the legend. Maya shows them that, and it turns out, wouldn't you know, all the people we just talked about, except for Leo, what will be the Red Ranger, they all pull the swords out of the stones, and then they get the powers almost immediately there. So almost immediately after this happening, which, by the way, I guess I'll talk more about the swords first. I had one of these Quasar sword things when I was a kid, and I love them. Typically, I love the Red Ranger in these Power Ranger shows. I mean, who doesn't? But a lot of the time, I know this sounds stupid. It's because they have a sword. Because I like swords. I don't know what it is about it, but I do. But this season, all the Power Rangers, like, they might have their little, like, guns and stuff, those weird triangle things they use sometimes to also operate the Megazords. But they all have a Quasar sword this time. And it's so neat, man. Like, the little thing they put on their hip, on their belt, to put that thing in, the sheath or whatever. When they load it in there, it collapses from a big sword to this little tiny dagger, and when they pull it out, it always becomes a big sword again. It's a great looking design for a sword. I've always loved that about it. It's very kind of futuristic, but it's very Power Rangers. I love those swords, man. The Quasar sabers are freaking sick. But essentially, they're the chosen ones. They pull it out, and not too long after this happens, as they're running through, the wilderness and the jungle, the rebel, Leo, happens to witness his brother Mike, at the current moment, the chosen Red Ranger. An earthquake hits, he saves all of his friends, and he himself is hanging off the cliff and passes his Quasar sword onto Leo, his younger brother. And now Leo is going to be the Red Ranger, the leader of this team, and he's not a very friendly guy. He's not really a leader in persona until later on. And Mike falls to his death. He falls to his death into this planet, in this earthquake or whatever, planet quake, whatever we call this thing. He falls down in there to his death and passes on this whole Red Ranger thing to his younger brother. So a lot of this season is Leo dealing with the grief of his brother being gone for quite a bit. And again, all of these guys get their new powers and stuff. They have their new morphers, which I love, by the way. I had so many toys from this show growing up. Matter of fact, I'll tell you something really quick. This show also has a nostalgic place in my heart because, kind of like Superman the Animated Series, when I had my leg sliced open, I talked about that in my review the other day. I have another nostalgic story for this. I got my tonsils removed, right? And my grandparents and my mom, and I guess kind of my dad, but it was mainly my mom, to try to help me feel better. Not only could I eat a lot of ice cream and stuff like you usually do when your kid gets their tonsils removed, they also bought me these things that were Power Rangers from Lost Galaxy, because they knew how much of a fan I was. There was a red one and a blue one of each of the Rangers, and they were like half the size of me as a child. They were big, dude, and they were like plushies, but they had like rubber heads, and I think they were called like battlers or something. I don't know what they were called. But they had like their little Quasar swords and stuff, and like if you bend their arm behind them, they would like cry. Like they would say like, "Ow, my arm," and stuff. I saw the commercial last night on YouTube and it made me laugh. I wanted to remember what they were called and I totally don't. But they were like plushies and they talked and stuff. They were kind of like, if you were a kid in the 90s, you probably saw those like wrestling figures that were around back in the day. They were kind of like plushies too, but they talked and stuff. They made one of Hugh Jackman for the X-Men movie of Wolverine, and I had one of those back when I was younger too. I guess that would have been after this, right? It would have had to have been. But anyway, my grandparents got me, I think it was the blue Power Ranger from this show, and my mom and dad got me the red one. And I remember coming home from the surgery and like them giving that to me, or those two things to me, and just like sobbing, dude, because I felt so bad. I couldn't talk. And you know how it is when you're a kid and you get your tonsils taken out. But it was such a great memory, man. And like my grandparents were there to kind of clean up the house a little bit because my mom was busy dealing with me and trying to comfort me. My dad wasn't there that day. He was working. So like it was such a good memory, man. And this show made me smile thinking back about that. And I guess that's why I have a soft spot on my heart for Kai, the Blue Ranger in here. He's not even really that great of a character. He's okay. He has a couple of episodes dedicated to him. But that's really it, But Leo, the what eventually, after his brother falls in a pit, becomes the Red Ranger. Dude, he's one of my favorite Red Rangers ever. I don't know if I said it in this particular recording, but the costumes for this show are great. I love them. I think they look so sick with like the black zebra stripes and stuff. But the colors just pop on this show, man. But it being a very sci-fi heavy show, I love that about it. The last season felt a lot like Star Trek The Next Generation, and this one feels like that sometimes, but not always. One of the things I didn't really talk about was the Green Ranger, and I guess I'll get into that now. The character's name is Damon. He's actually an engineer on the ship from the previous show in space that Alpha still lives on, and it's like a museum. It's not even in operation anymore because it's so old and beat up, which makes no sense because why would Andros and everybody be using it like not even like a year previously in the last season? But they basically steal the ship with Alpha on it, and the Green Ranger is the mechanic on the show. He's a mechanic in general for that museum, and he becomes a mechanic for Terra Venture, the big spaceship they're going to colonize places with. Now, alright, this is what I gotta say, right? This guy, a lot of the other actors are not very good. The Yellow Ranger ain't the greatest actress, despite being hot. The villain, Trakina, is not really a great actress, but she's hot. Kendricks, the Pink Ranger, is kind of nerdy. She reminds me of Bernadette, the love of my life from Big Bang Theory, even though I don't even like that show. She reminds me of Melissa, is it Roach? Whatever her name is. She looks like her. And Leo, the Red Ranger, he ain't a great actor either, man. He's pretty bad at first, and he kind of grows into the role, mostly, not entirely, but mostly for me. Most of these people can't act. That's the general situation, is what I'm trying to say. And it is what it is, because the show's for kids. So I didn't care about it as a kid. I shouldn't care as much about it now, but it's worth laughing at here and there. This guy, the Green Ranger, Damon, he has to be the worst actor on the show, man. I'm sorry. He is so freaking bad. He's actually married to Trakina in real life, so that's kind of a neat little piece of info. I guess they met here. I don't know. But he's so bad, dude. And he's kind of lanky, and he's an engineer, so like every time he's on screen, just hear me out. I swear I don't mean this to sound like how it sounds. And you're probably going to know if you're a Power Rangers fan and you've seen this season, you probably know what I'm about to say. Him being an engineer, what they do with this guy is that to show that he's an engineer, number one, he wears a jumpsuit, an ugly-ass green color jumpsuit everywhere he goes in this show. But number two, they always put black grease marks on his face. And the first time I saw it, and I'm not joking, he's a black guy, every time that this would happen and the black grease mark would move to like his forehead or like onto his cheek or something, I actually thought a couple of times that it was either a bruise or it was a birthmark. Now, I know that's wrong. I know people get offended about weird things. I couldn't help it. Dude, it was so distracting to keep doing that. I don't know what they were thinking. But it's so distracting. Just leave him in the jumpsuit. Stop putting grease marks all over the dude's face. Have a wrench in his hand. That's all you gotta do. You didn't even have to waste the $2 on some kind of black grease makeup stuff to put a little dab here and there on his face. I could have saved you money right there. Just put a wrench in his hand. And people would get the general gist. But he is just not good, dude. To be honest with you, neither is his costume. I'm not crazy about the Green Ranger costume or the Pink Rangers for that matter. The blue looks okay with the kind of ape theme. The red obviously is the lion. All the Zords are like animal themed, but they're like humongous animals that for some reason turn into robots. I don't think I ever got an answer for that, but who cares? It's Power Rangers. The Yellow Ranger has like a bird theme, and I really like her costume helmet thing. Now, I will say too, the main Megazord for this show that's pretty much used from beginning to end, I really dig. I think it's one of the other first Megazords, or one of the only other Megazords I ever had growing up, aside from the Lightspeed Rescue one and I want to say it was the Zeo Megazord? I can't remember. But I think this was one of the only other ones I ever had, maybe one of the last ones I had aside from Lightspeed Rescue. And it looks good. I think it's probably the next best one we've had since probably the original Mighty Morphin in the Dragon Zord, from Mighty Morphin 2. But I really enjoyed this show. I think it's really action-packed. The fights are just as good, if not sometimes better than what In Space had. The CGI is heavily used here. Now, the thing is, it's used sparingly enough that the majority of the episodes, I actually think that it looks good. You know, the Power Rangers have different vehicles here. They have, like, not the glider things from In Space, because they're not the Space Rangers, they're Galaxy Rangers. They're galactic overall in scope. They have, like, go-karts in space, right? They kind of look like different colored versions of the thing Luke Skywalker drove around in A New Hope with Obi-Wan on Tatooine. It looks like that, but different colors, right? It's kind of a neat little throwback looking thing. But, you know, they go out in space a lot. They use the original spaceship from In Space, and I think that's kind of cool for the bigger travel things they do. And the CGI looks good on those things. A lot of the time, those little Tatooine go-kart things look really nice, I think, when they're pulling up to a fight. Sometimes they look better than when the gliders show up in Space, to me personally. However, in the finale, you have like a 3-parter finale. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the finale was excellent, dude. I loved the finale of this show. It was so tense, dude. I stayed up till like 4 a.m. last night watching it because I just couldn't go to sleep because there was so much at risk that could go wrong with what was happening that I was stressed the fuck out watching the end of this show, to be honest with you. But I loved every second of it. It was worth staying up that late for. Today is my Friday, so it's all good, whatever. But the CGI is used so much in those final 3 episodes of the show. I feel like, number 1, most of the budget probably went there, and number 2, that stuff don't look that great. It's pretty cheesy. Like, it's pretty unfinished and unpolished most of the time, and I think even as a kid I remember that. I could be wrong. I didn't remember the finale and what happened in the finale, but, like, certain things, like the sky cracking and, hallway scenes of running away from the Trakina ship towards the end of the show, it looks terrible, man. But outside of that, I think it usually, for me personally, not being a nitpicky person, I really like a lot of the CGI in the show. I think the special effects are fantastic. The fights are usually really good, to me, especially in that final 3 parts, man. I guess I could talk about the monsters real quick, too. The monsters, outside of Scorpius and his daughter Trakina, a lot of the henchmen that kind of come up, like a lot of the monsters that come to serve and stuff, they're not as cool to me as everything from In Space and kind of backwards. They're very similar to like the Power Rangers monsters in Turbo. So, you know, that I think this is the beginning of the end of the super creative monsters, from what I remember. The only one that really stands out that I remembered was towards the end of this show. For whatever reason, in like the last 10 episodes before the 3-parter finale, there's like a pirate theme thing that happens. I guess they ran out of footage from whatever they were originally using footage from Super Sentai, and they had to do something else, I guess, because some of this footage looks older than what most of this show was using. And basically, it's like pirate themed at that point, right? And like the big bad that leads this like space pirate island on the back of a monster thing, he's like a pirate ship turned sideways and then put on top of a body. And it's freaking sick. The design and the like 4-decker nature of that pirate ship that is this monster, he looks cool. I really like it. The execution of that, like how goofy he is, how he's like not a super big threat, to be honest with you, or as dark of a threat as I think it could have been. Like, even looking at like all those years later, like Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, they could have done a lot with this guy, and I feel like it was kind of wasted, this whole pirate theme. His henchmen are awful. His version of the putties are basically just, you remember years ago when you would see people on YouTube wear like Spider-Man costumes, but they were basically like just the tights that you put over your whole body, and it was like a reverse hood that you put over your face, and then like zipped up your body and up the back of your head, and like people were like filming themselves dancing in like Walmart and stuff with that stupid ass outfit. Or you'd have like all the kids' YouTube channels we were all worried about on YouTube that were like bringing in kids to like watch, I don't know, like Spider-Man versus Venom, and like all the costumes were these zip up goofy costumes. That's what all of these pirate henchmen look like. Their version of the putties. They're basically just those orange costumes of the zip-up thingies I'm talking about, with a weird question mark on their face. Some of them are wearing, like, pirate bandanas and stuff. It's bad. I hate the pirate part of this show. It almost feels like it turns into a completely different show tonally and everything with that. But outside of that, all the other villain stuff, I really dig, especially Trakina and Scorpius. I love the stuff they do with them. And kind of Trakina's secondhand man, I really like that character too. He's kind of in and out on the show. He's not always here. They do a lot with him in the finale 3-parter too, and I really like that. It was very touching. It actually moved me a lot. It was him having to deal with a kid at one point on Terra Venture. It was very good. Very, very good. Now, the team itself, our Power Ranger team here, I don't know how much I would believe that they're actually friends. They don't always seem like that. Like, obviously the script says, be friends, be friendly with each other, blah, blah, blah. But they don't naturally come across like that, and I don't know if it's because of the acting or because of the writing or what. Obviously, I didn't notice it as a kid, but as an adult, it's kind of distracting, to be honest with you. But I like it, man. I think overall, Lost Galaxy is really, really awesome. I love the theme song for this show. The music is a whole different level. I think it's a brand new band. I don't think it's the same people. I think it was the same person that were doing Turbo and Backwards theme songs all the way back to Mighty Morphin. Because it sounded like every theme song was a new variation on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers up to Turbo. And maybe even in space, kind of too. This feels like a brand new band to me. It's a great theme song. Really, really, really gets stuck in your head. More so than In Space did. Matter of fact, this has basically replaced In Space's theme song in my head now. This is so much catchier. The melody with the guitar and stuff is fucking awesome. I love it, man. Now I get to finally remember, before I end the review, to talk about my favorite character in this show. The Magna Defender. Can't believe I almost ended the review and almost forgot to talk about him. The Magna Defender, you know how like every season has like a secret Power Ranger and stuff? That's what the Magna Defender is, essentially. But this is the thing. The Magna Defender, number one, his costume is so fucking cool. I could not find a good, not blurry picture that had all of these Rangers together to put here on the screen for this video, so I had to go with what I could. But if you don't know what the Magna Defender looks like, go look this guy up. He's basically the Punisher, but like also like Batman at the same time. He's not really a Power Ranger per se, like the Silver Ranger or like the Green Ranger, nothing like that. He's more like a Mandalorian, essentially. Like, he wears this body armor, and like this is the darker part of the show. And the Magna Defender shows up with his gravelly voice that I freaking love. He's super dark. His whole motivation in this show is revenge, because, the bad guys killed his kid in front of him. They killed his kid in front of him, dude. This show does not shy away from death. One of the Rangers dies at one point. I'm not going to tell you who that was, but who they replaced this person with was a great surprise. I could not believe that happened. Loved it, man. Even though I hope it carries into the next season. I don't know if it will, but I hope it does by what my memory serves. But yeah, this Magna Defender Punisher Batman guy, he's so awesome, dude. But like, his kid, when we see the flashbacks of him, which are hilarious, by the way, when the kid gets killed in front of him. I know that's gruesome and dark, but if you see it, you'll see how funny it is. The kid is wearing like a small costume for like a child of him. So I assume it is more in tradition of like Mandalorian. Maybe it's a throwback to like, maybe it's like a Star Wars reference at the time. Because we had Mandalorians at this time, so it had to have been, right? Anyway, the stuff with that kid wearing that costume is absolutely hilarious. But the Magna Defender, you can't help but feel really bad for him, man. He's so badass, dude. He's got like this sword. I had this toy when I was a kid too. He has this, everybody has a sword in this season, but his sword, when it gets put in its sheath, if he turns it a certain way, it becomes like a shotgun, like a laser shotgun. It is so badass, dude. I love this guy. His whole motivation the moment he shows up with his badassery in this show is to kill anybody that gets in his way. He fights Power Rangers. He's not really friends with them, kind of like how the Punisher's not really friends with any superheroes because he doesn't really like them. He's just awesome. I freaking love the Magna Defender. I'm going to also say something kind of controversial too. I think the Magna Defender is my favorite Power Ranger character ever because I'm a dark, gritty human being. I love this kind of thing. Stuff like Dark Knight and stuff are my favorite Batman movie. I love this character. He is so awesome. He's the best actor in this show, physically, and the voice actor they have playing him. And then later on, they replace him with somebody else to take over the Magna Defender role. And I don't want to spoil that either, in case you haven't seen this season, because it's so good. I'm going to kind of get away from spoilers when I review these shows, but somehow the videos still turn out a half an hour long like this one has. Oh well. The Magna Defender, when they replace him sorta kinda, it's not as good. It's not as good. He's not as ruthless. But the stuff they do with the original Magna Defender, oh my god, it's excellent, man. I love it. So anyway, Magna Defender is the highlight of the show for me. He is the coolest motherfucker on the planet. Probably my favorite Power Ranger, whatever he is ever. He's awesome. I recommend the show highly alone just for him. All the bug-themed stuff with the bad guys is really cool. Like the bad guys' putty character dudes having like stingers. There's moments where they have fights with the Rangers that are kind of uncomfortable with how they're like stabbing the Rangers. You're not seeing them like bleed or like get a hole in their costume, but it's still kind of like... I grew up on Goosebumps and Twilight Zone by this point a little bit, so I don't know. Well, I guess just a little bit at that time, but I feel like this stinger stuff would have scared me as a kid. I don't know, but I feel like it would have, because it's kind of ruthless sometimes. I don't like the buzzing noise they make either. It's kind of making me uncomfortable as I watch the show. But anyway, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy was so damn good. I was really worried about this because a lot of people tried to talk about this show being a disappointment compared to In Space. And I could get that with the pirate era of this season. But dude, that's like a whole 5 episodes, maybe. Not even that. If you cut out the intros and outros of the show and the recaps, that's really like an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes of this show being like that. With all the other great stuff in it, really is that going to ruin the show for you? I love it. I recommend it alone. I mean, you can jump right in. You have to know literally nothing about previous Power Ranger stuff, and you can enjoy the crap out of this. All the stuff with the swords and the Magna Defender and the villains being bug-themed and stuff. All of that stuff is great. I feel like they really pulled through on having a great season here, just like they did within Space before it. I love it. I recommend it highly. I think that the cast, especially the Red Ranger, gets better and better as time goes on. Let me talk a little bit more about Leo, the Red Ranger from this show. I talked briefly about him kind of off and on, but I really meant to say too, he really becomes that kind of Goku heroic character by the end of the season. I love him. I think he is so sick. I talked about him being like one of my favorite Red Rangers ever, but he is an actual leader. He feels like a leader as the show kind of progresses, and pretty quickly too. Not like forced into the role like Tommy was in Zeo. Nothing like that. He just feels like he grows into that role really well with the writers and stuff doing this stuff. I just love him. I think he was so sick here. There's one particular fight that he has kind of one-on-one with Trakina that was so badass, dude. He had like gotten his shirt torn up and stuff, and it's in the intro they kind of redo halfway through the season. He just grabs what's left of his shirt and rips it open and shows like his abs and shit. And it is so awesome, dude. If you haven't seen that scene from this show, you gotta look it up. It's so corny and cheesy, but I love it. It was such a badass moment, man. One of the best moments in Power Rangers, dude. Leo was awesome. Aside from the Magna Defender's original Defender, he is easily my next follow-up favorite character from the show. They're both so sick, dude. What a time to be alive back in the day as a kid. You had stuff like this. You had the Star Wars prequels coming out. Oh, God, it was great. Scooby-Doo was doing VHS releases on movies, and they were amazing, you know, like, God, dude, there was nothing like growing up in the 90s and in the 2000s back then. But this was so awesome. I am so glad Lost Galaxy ended up being as good as it was. There's a couple of times that I felt that kind of creeping, I'm starting to get a little burnt out. I think I'm going to take a break after this show feeling. And I'm going to do that. I'm not going to jump right into Lightspeed Rescue. I have a lot of stuff I want to finish up, like some comics I want to read and finish that I've had unfinished for a little bit. I'm watching a couple other shows I'd like to finish up and talk about. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break again. I'm probably going to hit like 2 Power Ranger seasons at a time every time I get in the mood for this. But I don't think it's going to be like a 4-month break between this and the next season, because this was so good. I'm going to be thinking about this show for a while, especially that finale, man. Oh, so good. So anyway, what do you think about Power Rangers Lost Galaxy? Is this as good as you remember it being as a kid if you saw it back then? If you watched it for the first time ever recently, or in the last couple of years or whatever, I'd love to hear what you have to say about it compared to everything else before it, everything after it, I guess. Let me know all that down below, because man, this is a highlight for me. So much about it stands out. Again, the costumes, the bug theme, the animal theme, the theme song, all of that stuff. It just stands out in such a great, iconic way to me that I think this is one of the most iconic Power Rangers shows ever to me. I can't wait to delve into Lightspeed Rescue. I think for sure that's the next show. I haven't looked into it too deeply. But that was one that I loved as a kid too. I love the PS1 game for that as well, so I can't wait to get around to playing that too, alongside that show. Anyway, thank you guys again for listening to me ramble. God bless you all, catch you later, and goodbye.